Hi, this is a talking video. Spooky, I know. So, path and tier list. Everyone and their mum has made one, so you might be wondering, what's the point in this one? Well, besides obviously hoping to get a shit ton of views, I don't actually like most tier lists I've seen. I think something too many people do is hyperfixate on one aspect of each playable, which is usually how strong they are, which ends up with Rex, Spino, and Eotrike all the way up in S tier, and then Ramp and Deinonychus in F tier. And in my opinion, that's not a good way to do it. There's a lot more to what makes a good playable. And so, yeah. The main categories for me are gonna be combat capability, survivability, and group usefulness. I think those are the main aspects to what makes a good playable. So, with that out of the way, Aquila Beta. Aquila, pretty solid. I want to put it in B tier. It has a lot of builds and can focus on many things. You can go with the Pounce build, which completely decimates Apexes. You can go the Mob Boss route, which makes Raptor Packs terrifying. They can kill almost anything. Unless you're an Apex and can go in deep water, you're just dead. It also has really good survivability, so much stamina. And although it's slower than most 2 slots, the Cake is just a glorified tail fan. It gives you a decent speed boost, and it's also on such a short cooldown, you can almost outspeed an Alio. It can also jump incredibly high, so you can just scale cliffs to escape. And for group usefulness, as I said, Mob Boss back, it just kills anything. It's also a good tracker. You can follow most things around, keep track of them until the bigger stuff catches up. So yeah, overall, very solid playable. It's not the best, but very useful overall. It. Anodontosaurus. The absolute mistake of a playable that should have never existed. It absolutely baffles me how this thing is in such a horrible state and always has been. Its entire playstyle is just fundamentally broken. It's never gonna work. Hunker Down is just a horrible ability. It's not fun. It's not engaging. It's boring for both the Anodonto and the thing trying to kill it. And it's in S tier for a reason. Its survivability, amazing. You crouch down and Tail Slam has the AoE of a football field, so nothing can really touch you and besides a Spino. And even if that wasn't enough, Anodont is also really good at swimming, so you can just swim across a river from its problems. Or log inside river if it doesn't want to go on land, because amazing oxygen, amazing water stamina. And group utility, it's a literal standing wall with Bone Break. It can just stand there and deny you doing anything. If something goes up against the cliff, you get an Anodonto to cover it, and it's not getting past. And once Bone Broken, you're basically dead. Very unbalanced, very poorly designed, incredibly unfun. I hate Anodontosaurus. Everybody I know hates it, and it needs a rework very, very desperately. On a lighter note, Albertoceratops. Albertoceratops is very mediocre. I want to put it in D tier. Yeah, D tier. Maybe even E, but I'll settle with D for now. The thing about it is a decent brawler. It can pack a decent punch to Aspethosaurus or Allos, even Sukos to an extent. But where it struggles the most is its turning radius and speed. It's decent at brawling, but it can't get away from anything. It's slower than Sukos, slower than Allos, slower than Dasps, and it is still weaker than them in a face tank. So those 3 dinos in particular just invalidate Alberta altogether. And by virtue of being slow, as long as there's a 2 slot chasing it, not letting it sit, even a Rex can catch up to it eventually. So it's decent at brawling against smaller things, and maybe even Apexes, but it really struggles against things like Allo, Dasp, and Suko, and groups. It gets very overwhelmed very easily. Survivability is the main thing holding it back. Its group utility is not amazing either. Like, I would never choose to have an Albertoceratops in my group over even an Eotrike, because they're more or less the same playable. Eotrike is just an upscaled, glorified version of it. Styracosaurus as well. I would pick Styraco over an Alberta any day of the week. So much more utility, so much more helpful because of its speed, decent burst damage. So yeah, Alberta overall, not the best, but it's not bad, just mediocre. Speaking of mediocre, Alio. Alio. Also, you know what? I'm gonna put it in E. Same with Alio. Alio Ramos has good survivability. It's the second fastest creature in the game, I think. Should be the second, unless you count Camptos Hop away. He has decent stamina, but it's so fragile. It's so weak. It has almost no health and no damage either. Even with Ambush, Alio does less damage than a regular Cerato Bite. It's so useless. The only use you can get out of it in a group is tracking, but at that point you might as well get a Kilo or a Metri. Those things up not too much slower, have around the same stamina. A Kilo has way more stamina, and they can also actually fight whatever you're going after. So yeah, overall just very good. It desperately needs help. Allosaurus. See, I want to put Allo in C tier because it's a very average playable. It's not bad by any means. It's an all-rounder. But that's exactly where the problem lies. By virtue of being an all-rounder, it's not particularly useful for anything. If I want bleed, I would much rather get a Concavenator or a Tyrannosaurus on my team. If I'm looking for the DPS, I would go Dasp or Suko. If I'm looking for the mobility, I would just go Pykno. So, by virtue of being average in everything, it also makes it a bit redundant, which has me conflicted on what to put it. I leave it in C tier because it's not actually bad. It's just in a group setting. It's not the most helpful playable. Amargasaurus. What do I do with you? I'll put you in D tier. Amargasaurus is very good at combat. Its knockback is insane. It can whack apexes out of its reach and survive them. It can also do really well against more medium dinos like Allo or Suko. But outside of its 1v1 potential, it can get quite easily overwhelmed. And it's not very useful for groups just because the stump has AoE, so you need to keep your distance from it. And the tail range is massive, so it's incredibly likely to friendly fire you. And if you're looking for a wall, you might as well pick an Odontosaurus. But again, that doesn't make it a bad playable. It's just that it can get quite easily overwhelmed, and it's not the best in groups, so in my opinion that holds it down a bit. Barsboldia. Oh god, does not love you. It's genuinely useless. It comes into the same issues that Amarga bumps into. It has very big AoE attacks. Well, they're not actually AoE, but they have a big radius. So it can do a lot of friendly fire. Then, the same point as the wall. If you're looking for a wall, you might as well pick an Odontosaurus. And its survivability is horrendous. I'll give it points. Bars is the best for Apex 1v1s. It can kill a Rex, it can kill a Duck, it can kill an Eotrike, zero problems. You can combo Headbutt into Tail Slam and just slowly whip him down with hit and runs like that. But against anything smaller than an Apex, its cooldowns just get cheesed so easily. Asuko can just bite the tip of your tail, wait until you use Tail Slam, go for a free bite or two on your ass. Or it can go into your face or onto your side. Bars is so ridiculously big, a lot of dinos can just go towards its front limbs and just ride its legs while avoiding Tail Slam and Headbutt at the same time. Its reach, just because of its body size, is not amazing, which leaves it with a lot of blind spots. Yeah, not much else to say, just not a good playable in the slightest. Camptosaurus. F tier. A lot of bad playables. Kamto's main issues are honestly just the lack of its kit. It doesn't really have any attacks, it can't do much besides running around. So yeah, it's really good at following things, keeping track of them, but outside of that, it doesn't contribute anything. It's got really good survivability as well, but at that point, there's so many better choices. Why get a Kamto when you can have a Styraco, which is almost as fast and does a lot of damage? Why have a Kamto when you can have a Strufy, which is a really good support? It's quicker, has more stamina, I'm pretty sure, and can actually fight things by itself. A good Strufy can obliterate Concavenators, even a Kilobators. So yeah, that leaves Kamto just in mediocrity. Concavenator. C tier. A lot of people honestly underestimate Concavenator. It's not as bad as many make it look to be. Where Concavenator struggles the most is just other two slots. A good Alio, a Speed Serrato, a Metri, a Styraco, they can all kind of just invalidate Concavenator. That's where it struggles the most. But when it comes to bigger things, it's actually one of the most consistent 2-slot at killing them. It can max speed in just 2 attacks, and he heals incredibly quick, so what it can do is go for 2 close wipes, run out, heal, and by the time the other person has the combat timer out, you're already on full HP, so you can rinse and repeat until they bleed out eventually. It's also semi-aquatic, which is another bonus to its survivability. Whenever it has issues, it can try and run into the water, and unless there's a Starko waiting for you or a Meg chasing you, you should be fine. It's also the best 2-slot bleeder, which is quite nice. Suko and Akila also do bleed, but it's so abysmal, might as well not exist. So, not the most amazing thing, but it does have its decent uses. Serrato. Controversial opinion. I might get some hate for this, but E tier. It runs into the same problems as Aloe. It's decent for 1v1s, but it can get so easily overwhelmed. And there's so many other creatures that can do the same thing as it, but better. Why have a Serrato when you can have an Aquila? Why have a Serrato when you can have a Metri? Yeah, it has good damage, it's decently tanky, but it's not the quickest. Its speed is not very good, 1050. It does get a lot better if you use Speed Hide, but outside of that, yeah. Just mediocre in my opinion. The Spletosaurus. They just had to Gigabuff you, didn't they? I don't think I have to say much about this guy. Bomb break, really quick, incredibly agile. Its ass has the hitbox the size of a moon. While playing Concavenator, I found, well, I didn't find out, but I got reminded of just how horrible it is. Its tail hitbox goes so far down, it is impossible to actually get behind it. You just straight up can't hit it because its tail hitbox buddy blocks you before you can get into reach, and it's so incredibly frustrating. Then they also unlinked the cooldowns from Bomb Break, Heavy Bite, Piercing Bite with a regular one, which made it a lot worse as well. It can combo so much damage. Bomb Break is such an oppressive mechanic as well. It just overall way too overtuned. Duck. I think Duck is arguably the best Apex. It's not the best at fighting other Apexes, but it has the best survivability. It's very good at aquatic combat as well. I'm pretty sure it has one of the fastest stam regens out of the Apexes. It also has the fastest Strahd out of any of them. And with his, you can go toe to toe with a Rex or a Spino quite well. I mean, yeah, that's about it. Just very good survivability. It heals incredibly fast, so you can get back into combat not too long after taking damage. Overall, very solid pick. Deinonychus. It's just so much worse than Latin. It has better mobility, but why does it matter when a Latin can dish out ridiculous damage during 9 and has so many more abilities, a much more fleshed out kit. Latin can do everything Dino does, but better. The only thing it's worse as is its speed, but with Tailfan it doesn't really matter. So Dino's kinda just forgotten, very mediocre, no reason to ever pick it over Latin. Eo Triceratops. What do I do with you? C tier? Eo's one of the best creatures in a 1v1 scenario. The only thing it can lose to is a good Rex, a Bars, and an Anno. And its survivability is quite good because it turns on a dime, so unless you're being chased by a bunch of 2 slots and 3 slots and an Apex, you can usually just spin to win. Nothing can really get behind you, and if you plank your ass into a wall, your head hitbox is so massive, you'll just hit them every single time. If there is an Apex though, your trike gets kinda fucked. As long as the Apex has a 2 slot with it, because its trot is mediocre, its stamina recovery not the best, and it still gets face tanked by a Rex. It might get face tanked by a Spino too, though I've not tried in a while, so can't promise. Hatzegopteryx. Yeah. I don't like Hatzegopteryx. It's very fun to play as, I'll give it that, but it is very oppressive. It's really good at tracking, it can keep up with pretty much anything by virtue of being a flyer. And it can do so much damage. With Peck Barrage, its DPS is, I think, the second best in the game. It's ridiculous. With Stab, you can 8-shot a Rex. You can pick up Conkers and Alios and just drop them to their death. If you use Stab and Peck combo, you can also dish out really good DPS and you also get stamina back for it. Another thing is Stuff Beak. It doesn't seem so bad on paper, but against Apexes, you can just wait out the combat timer, which is 30 seconds, and then just trade one hit with a Rex and an Eotrike, and because of Tough Beak, you'll take way reduced damage, while you take an 8 for their HP. And just by doing that, you can kill an Apex in less than 5 minutes. It's not so bad in the wrong hands, but someone who actually knows what they're doing on hats can decimate almost anything. By virtue of being a flyer, also amazing survivability. Group use comes from just being able to track pretty much anything and also fight really well. It's too good in too many aspects in my opinion. It could definitely use some nerfs. Still not as bad as Anodonta though. God doesn't love you either. Iguanodon. They nuked its stats, they gave it Allo stats, and that was just the death of it. The problem with Iguanodon is not even necessarily its stats, but its reach. Its hitboxes are atrocious. The thumb cannot reach anything. If you try to chase something and stab them, unless it has a stubby build or they're short like a Concavenator, Cerato, or Eotrike, you just can't hit them. You get stuck with your head in their tails, especially on Dasp, and you cannot do anything to them, you just get tail spammed in your face. It's a bit better if you play defensively with tail attack and kick, but even then you can just get flick bitten. Asuko can just run around you and quickly turn into you to bite your head and still be out of your reach. It's very frustrating to play. Survivability is not very good either, because although it has decent speed and decent stamina, its stamina regeneration is very mediocre, and its trot speed is one of the slowest in the games, so a determined Allo or a Dasp can run you down even with long distance runner. Very, very poor playable. We did say that they're gonna do an ability TLC for Iguanodon, so I have some hopes for it, but as of right now, horrible playable. I would not advise playing it at all. Kentro. Kentro, I think, is another mediocre one. Its turn radius nerfs were very overkill. It turns like a semi-track now. It's still not necessarily bad. It does decent bleed. It has good survivability because whatever bites you takes damage, and the only things that can bite you while you're running take enough damage they have to back off. But you can't really play offensively anymore. You just have to stand there and run around hoping that you're gonna land a tail hit. And there's a bunch of dinosaurs that just kind of invalidate you because you're still not the fastest and you became a lot squishier. So a good Serato, a good Akilo, a good Metri, even a good Conker can just completely invalidate a Kentro if they know what they're doing. It's, in my opinion, probably even worse than Alio, because Alio at least is able to track things for you. Kentro can also do that, but worse. So, definitely need some help. But Kentro TLC did get revealed or announced, so hopefully it's gonna have a brighter future. Lambeosaurus. I want to put Lambeo in A tier, but unlike Dasp and Hats, I don't actually think it's overpowered. Its 1v1 potential, or even just combat potential, is not very good. It's around in D. But it's good at playing defensively, so although you can't go aggressive and kill an Aloe, you can still defend yourself against most things. And it gets completely carried by just how useful it is in a group, and just how good its survivability is. It's really quick, with some abilities you can go really quick downhill and uphill as well. It's a really good swimmer, so you can swim across lakes or rivers to get away from threats. It has really good stamina, really good stam regen, very good health recovery, even without the heal calls. So overall, very good playable. I don't think it's overpowered unlike the other two in this tier, but still very good, and in my opinion, a must use for groups. Latin. I'll probably put Latin in D or C. I'm gonna stick to D for now. The thing with Latin, unless you have a full raptor-oriented group of Deinonychus and Nikilobates, you're not that useful to a group of carnivores, because you're still squishy, you don't do that much damage, and the tracking job can get done even better by an Akilobeta. So it shoots up quite high. I'd probably put it in B tier if you have a dedicated raptor pack with you, but overall, probably in D tier, because it doesn't have much to contribute to groups. Its survivability is really good, but then its combat, it can't really kill much. So yeah, D tier. What's next? Metriacanthosaurus. Yeah, needs nerfs. I love Metri, don't get me wrong. I've been having a blast playing Metri as it is right now, but it's just not very healthy for the game. It has 2 health bars. Its health recovery at base is very good, so you can out-heal things even without your heal calls. It can nerf anything's damage by 20%, or it can make itself trot faster. A lot of people look at its damage, they see, oh my god, Bite only does 25 and Claw Attack only does 30 or 35, whatever it was, and they think it's shit, but they tend to forget that it still has decent DPS, it's still decently tanky, it has 2 health bars. Whenever you bite it, your heal gets lowered. In case you didn't know, yes, Metri is a poison, I guess, or venom. Slows down healing, and I think stam regen as well. So you can really play into the out-healing game. It takes a while, but a dedicated and motivated Metri can pretty much kill any Apex, as long as they don't go into water. It's also a really good group member, just because, again, heal call can nerf other people. And its survivability is really good for the exact same reasons. It's also very quick, has really good stamina, has a trot faster than any 2-slot, I think. Trots faster than Alio, Conker, or Serato, or Pachi. So overall, very, very good. In my opinion, it doesn't need straight up nerfs, it just needs a rework as a whole. The way it is right now, it's not very healthy for the game in my opinion. So I would love to see a Metri rework at some point, even if just with the abilities. Megalania. Average. Mega's not bad, better than Conker. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but as long as you play it right, which is hit and run with heavy bite and poking, it's still very good. It can do a lot of burst damage. It's also very, very quick, very agile, very short, so it's quite hard to hit. Survivability, again, amazing, because semi-aquatic and still is 1100 speed. So whenever it has an issue, you can go into water, and as long as you have some water abilities, you can even outspeed things like Spinos or Suicos. Venom is also, in my opinion, quite underrated. It is bad, don't get me wrong, but in a group setting, Venom can come in quite handy because it does slow down people stamina regen a noticeable amount. And if you have a Rex or an Aloe or Suko, whatever, following behind, it does help a lot in them catching up to whatever you're chasing. So, very good survivability, can be decent in combat, and can bring a decent amount to a group. It's a good tracker and can slow things down by stamina regen. So yeah, I'll leave it in C tier. Patchy. Patchy is struggling right now. Very much struggling. Survivability is never most amazing. He has good stamina, and if you have charge, you can get away from most threats. But charge does no damage right now, so you either have to go with kick to have some actual existing damage, or you have to go to charge just to survive, but then you're very mediocre in fights, you don't bring much to the table. Don't bring much to the table to groups is another thing. It doesn't really contribute in any way. There's no reason to pick a Patchy over something like Styraco or a Stroofy even. Just mediocre. Doesn't bring much to the table, weak at the best survivability. You can stay in F tier. Pykno. Pykno's not bad. Pykno's very underrated in my opinion. It's not the best at brawling, but Pykno has a niche, and it's very good at said niche. You can run down almost any 2-slot and a lot of smaller 3-slots. If you have a problem with Achillos, Alios, Stratos, Conkas, Metries, Megs, pretty much anything, Pykno's the thing to pick. You can run down pretty much all of them because he has identical stamina, a charge that allows it to catch up and do decent burst damage, and one of the fastest trots in the game. I think it's either the second or third fastest. I know Campus is faster, but I'm not sure if Stroofy's is. So, although not the most brawly character, it has a very good niche and can bring a lot to the table. It's the best thing for taking out 2-slots and smaller 3-slots. Ramp. Ramp is really good. Sure, it's horrible at combat. If we're going off just combat, it's an F tier because it literally cannot do any damage. But it brings a lot to the table for groups. Fishy Breath is very good. You can give people extra damage, extra defense, you can make them heal quicker. Its survivability is through the roof, because semi-aquatic and flyer. It's a really good trophy thief. You can just camp Crater and steal trophies, hand them over to its group members. It can also debuff enemies, so there's also that. Overall, it's a very good support, it can bring a lot of uses. It's not good at combat, but that's the only downside it has, and it makes sense considering how good it is at helping group members. So yeah, solid playable, B tier. Stroofy. I think I'd put Stroofy even in D or C. I'll go for D right now, but I might put it up later. Stroofy's a decent support dinosaur. Not the best, nowhere near as good as Lampio, but it can still speed you up. Like if you have an Eotrike, your main worry is a group of Rexes because they will run you down eventually. You don't have the trot speed or stamina regeneration for it. And that's where Stroofy can come in. With the ability that allows you to run fast a lot behind it, forgot what it's called. You can get away from a lot of threats, which is really, really good. It's also surprisingly decent in combat. A good Stroofy can kill Megs, you can kill Conkas, you can kill Achillos, you can kill Latins. It's very underrated. It does take a lot of finesse, but once you get used to how to play Stroofy, it's a very, very solid playable. Survivability, I don't even think I have to talk about it. One of the fastest things in the game, if not the fastest. Has really good trot speed, ridiculous stamina. Take Barash has really good DPS. Yeah, just decent. Suko. An update ago I would have put Suko in A tier, but since the Claw Barrage nerfs and the stamina recovery nerfs, I think Suko is in a much better place. I still hate it. I think Claw Barrage is a very poor choice for Suko. It made it from an actual engaging and somewhat skillful playable to just boring face tank or ass ride simulator. There's no reason to try and flick bite anything anymore. Why do that when I can just face tank a duck and win? By the way, I don't think you can actually do that, but you get the point I'm making. But other than being brain dead, Suko is a decent playable, has pretty good survivability. It's semi-aquatic, which is very nice. And for a 4-slot, it's very quick and has the same stamina as an Aloe or a Dasp. So very solid. DPS, as I said, nutty. And can bring a lot to groups as well, just by virtue of being semi-aquatic. So yeah, overall, very solid. Brain dead, but solid. Spino. I put Spino just above Geotrike. It's not the best for Apex on Apex combat, but again, semi-aquatic, so just by virtue of that, it can bring a lot more to the group and has much better survivability. A full water Spino is the best semi-aquatic in the game and can easily dispatch of Sarcos, Ducks, Flucos. So overall, quite solid. I might even bump it up in high C, maybe even low B, but I'll wait for that. The Sarco. What do I do with you? I hate Sarco. In my opinion, the sniper rifle playstyle is very uninteractive, boring, and brain dead. It's fun if you're playing as the Sarco, don't get me wrong, one-shotting a Metri is very fun. But it's just not very engaging. Especially because as long as you have a person that has a working headset, you're also never going to get the charge bite off, so it's very feast or famine. The reason it's so high though is because group utility by virtue of being semi-aquatic, same as the Spino. And also, if your group is in danger and they go on water edge, as long as you have a Sarco, you're untouchable. Charge bites has such a short cooldown, there's almost no time to take advantage of it and go for a hit on whatever's hiding near the water. So a Sarco can just stand there spamming charge bite and you can never touch anything it's defending. So very good at holding down places overall. In my opinion, that's bad, it's boring, not healthy for the game, but it doesn't stop it from being a decent playable, I suppose. Stego. You can go in E. Stego's stats aren't bad at all. Its problems come from its tail attack. There's like a half a second period between tail attacks where people can bite your tail. And also Stego's tip of the tail doesn't actually do damage, but it can take damage and has no recoil. So what happens if a player knows what they're doing? They're just gonna bite the very tip of your tail until you die. And it's such a frustrating feeling because you cannot do anything about it. You can try and negate it a bit by keeping your side to whatever you're fighting, but a good Zuko, or a good Spino, or a good Rex, whatever, a good Aloe, is still gonna kill you. It's not enough. Stegos needs something like recoil and stealthy because as it is, it's just a miserable playable. And also doesn't really bring much to groups. If you want bleed, just pick Sty. If you want a brawler, just go Eotrike or even Alberta. Or even Amarga, to be honest. It just doesn't contribute anything, it gets cheesed very easily, not a very good playable. Definitely needs a TLC or something. Styraco. I put Styraco somewhere in high C. It has decent bleed, it's very quick, does a lot of damage. Its DPS is not the best in the world, it has a headbutt has a 3-second cooldown, but it does 70 damage per hit, so for hit and runs, it's amazing. Its burst damage is very good. Bleed is also very nice. It's, in my opinion, the best herbivore to pick if you were looking to deal bleed. So just by virtue of being the best at that, it's good for groups. It's good for tracking because it's so quick. It's good at combat because of its burst damage. Overall, very solid. So yeah, I'll keep it at high C tier around here. Foul. Honestly, I don't even want to talk about it. It's foul. I don't think I need to explain anything. Just piss poor playable. And that leaves it with Rex. Rex can go next to Duck. Rex's survivability is actually the second worst out of all the Apexes. The only thing that dies more than a Rex is a Bars. Because Rex is not very agile. Its hitboxes and cooldowns can get cheesed fairly easily. But it's still the best thing in a face tank. You can kill anything in a brawl. As long as there's a cliff next to you or water, you can also put your ass in it, and then you're untouchable. Another thing is Bomb Break. Just by virtue of how oppressive Bomb Break is with Hypervex as it makes it a really good pick for groups. Bomb Break is an instant win button. As long as something is bomb broken, you won the fight. The only exception might be a Sharpened Horned Eel, and that's about it. Bomb Break gives me a headache. It needs a rework very, very badly. As it is right now, it's, again, not healthy for the game. It's very frustrating to play against. And yeah, it's just an instant win button. It slows you down so ridiculously much and locks a bunch of abilities. It's just too much for way too little cost. And for the sake of it, I'll do the aquatics as well. Iwikia. I'll put it in either D or C. I think I'm gonna go with D. It's better than the Piss Dolphin and damaging, but at that point you might as well pick a Sarko or a full Water Speed Spino. It brings more utility than a Kaiwikia would. Yeah, not much to say about it. Aquatics, as they are, very unengaging. Gwandwa has horrible map design. There's no overlap between aquatics and land creatures, so there's just really not much to say about him. I'll put the Piss Dolphin probably in B tier. It's the fastest aquatic / semi-aquatic. It does decent bleed, so you can track almost anything in the water. Can also slowly wear them down. So, in my opinion, a much better pick than Kaiwikia would be. And that about rounds it up. Okay, hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe or something. Bye.